What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another weekly update. Now, this past week, we started to see a rollover, and up to this point, most technicals have not quite played out, but we have starting to see some selling. Like I said, everything with Powell and everything else has been kind of cemented. As far as growth has got the green flag. There is essentially nothing wrong with growth. Value and banks, I think we'll all gradually see good growth going forward into the holidays. But being said, we do have some events coming up. We do have essentially the future of where the Federal Reserve Chairman Powell, where he is going, if he's going to stay or if he's going to leave. And we should be able to determine that this week. It is our first full week into September. We've had a bunch of short weeks in September, just getting out of this last week. But the biggest thing on Friday to point out was we had the antitrust stuff that came out about Apple. Also trying to pay developers more. That whole thing came out. That kind of led us to this massive sell-off. I am recording this on a Friday. If you are watching this after the bell, that led to the big bleed off. That's what kickstarted everything. But ultimately, understand it wasn't just that. Yes, that can gouge big into profits as far as Apple and Google are concerned. But being said, what we wanted to see is this is ultimately an SPX rollover, right? A quarterly rollover. It is coming into the quarter. All earnings are pretty much done. I'm not even looking at an earnings list going into this next week. And yes, quarterly earnings are SPX rollover essentially will happen before the end of the month because people got to start shifting stuff around. So being said, we might see this possibly going into another week. We have to kind of play it and see how it goes. There was no other news, right? Aside from the Apple stuff, that kind of started the flush. And then from that point, we just continued to sell off. But being said, going into this week, I don't really have a watch list. It's something I've been talking about. I've been waiting for this rollover for quite a while. It has taken more than a month, essentially. Been playing a lot of intraday stuff because I haven't been able to build bigger positions because we've been at higher levels. But now that we're starting to come down, ultimately going into this week, I want to keep eye on essentially the core stocks. I do have a list here that says core. These are the ones I like to trade often and frequently. Because I like the way they move. I like essentially the fundamentals of the company is also a big thing. And again, I like the way it trades and the liquidity of these stocks. That is why I typically like to play them. But being said, going into this week, we will probably see some more selling. Even Monday, I wouldn't be surprised if we possibly gap up or even down on Monday. As coming into it, I think we might actually pop back up just because there's a lot of selling going on. So Sunday evening, I think we'll pop and then lead into another down Monday, and then possibly even more selling. And again, if anything comes out with Powell saying that he's not coming back, that could be a potential another catalyst to sell. And then typically October, to remember, October is a month that we normally sell off. It's historically another month that we typically sell off pretty heavy. So after this rollover, we might get a little pop for 2 weeks and then start selling a little bit more. So just something to keep in mind. But this is good, great potential here. This is something you really want to keep an eye on because moving forward, going into the holidays is when we're going to start getting that holiday push. So this next month and a half, we really want to look and see what is going on. Again, SPX selling pretty heavy. We'll have to see how this turns out on Monday. So definitely look out. If you haven't done so already, subscribe so you get the daily updates, and that kind of clues you in on what's been going on and kind of the continuation of the conversations I do have on here and the analysis I do have on here. QQQ, again, broke support, down at second support. I wouldn't be surprised. Everything, again, is so high. I don't really see us selling too much. Possibly, would like to kind of see us hit the 50 at least, especially for QQQ. If you've noticed, it's tagged the 50 and essentially been bouncing almost every time, and it's hit the 50. Now, can we blow past that? We sure can. But ultimately, I think at this point, this correction, I think, will be diluted, like I've said, like I've stated. And I think the 50, the 366 ultimately on QQQ is probably going to be where we head to. There's no guarantee. We could pop right back next week and be perfectly fine, or we could continue to sell. It's always a 50-50 shot. That's why we try to take it day by day. That's why I do the daily updates to kind of give you an idea of what my thoughts, ideas, and opinions on what's going on with the markets currently. Gold. Gold's been selling off pretty good. It hasn't really been pushing. I haven't really played gold much, I'll be honest, on this run. I used to play gold quite a bit last year, but this year, it just there's just bigger moves in growth than to play something like gold, in my opinion. Maybe gold is your thing, but for me, it is not. Bitcoin essentially is trading pretty flat. We'll have to see this weekend. ADA, if you know anything about crypto, you know ADA is probably the next up and coming. They have smart contracts coming out on Sunday. That could be huge for ADA. So that's something to watch for crypto on the crypto side. But when you're talking about ones like Tesla and stuff, again, I think we could possibly, when we see 650, that's going to be pretty rough. I'll be surprised if we blow past 700, to be honest. Again, I don't think this pullback is going to bring us that far down. Man, we might see 640, maybe 650. I don't think we really want to go too far down. Again, I don't think we are crashing. Again, we'll see a nice little pullback, but I think nothing around that 650 mark. So I'm really thinking around possibly somewhere around floating around that 700 is where we'll pull back. Maybe even the 680 is something we might see. As long as we continue some kind of uptrend here with Tesla, I think that will be definitely good, especially going into the future. Again, there's been some big, one thing to keep in mind, there's been some big price targets for Tesla, for Apple, for Google. Although news just came out today about the antitrust stuff, which kind of it was particularly aimed towards Apple, but again, other applications like Google and everything else are going to be affected by that. But being said, we have to see how it reacts. One thing to keep in mind is you got stocks like Facebook, which even though everything is getting hammered pretty hard, Facebook with AdSense and everything does quite well. And something else to probably keep in mind as well is TTD is also a big ad generator too. So you might see a lot of money fluctuate in here. Maybe not so much in TTD because people aren't quite aware of trading desks, but more so of Facebook, especially now that Apple's kind of taking a major hit. Facebook might get some money. I know Netflix got some of that money today. Some of the meme stocks. So we got Netflix. Netflix had a bit of a pump, but ended up selling off, so it's playing range. I don't typically play Netflix. AMC, though, had a nice pump, something to keep on watch. It's starting to go up higher, testing all support, something to keep on watch. If everything else starts selling off, you're trying to figure out where the money's going. Right now, it looks like the MEMS might be getting pumped again until growth starts getting it back together and starts pushing back up. So that'd be something to keep on watch for next week. Shop, again, just trying to let some of these sell. It'd be interesting to see how much this holds. This has been holding really well and consolidating. Maybe this just comes back down to 1432 and then bounces back and playing this big range because it has been playing quite a big range since earnings. And breaking down any further, I think would be a little bit more concerning. Again, I don't think we're going to correct that big, especially with all the money and continuations of possibly even more lockdown, more stimulus possibly coming. So although rate raises around the world are something that have been occurring, especially after people say they weren't going to do any rate raises. We still have that information coming up later on. We still have debt ceiling information coming up around the October, so that's why we could see a bigger correction then. So again, we might see another week of selling. I might see some pumping, and then we'll get all that information as far as debt ceiling and all that stuff, which may be a catalyst to sell, bring us down a little bit lower, and then take us into the holidays. So what I want to see, again, I keep everything on watch. Where is it at? Did have it on here. UPST is one I definitely want to watch and see on how it does on this pullback. I definitely want to pick it up at 237. Might be a good bounce. Right now, I'm looking to see where good balance, good support is, and try to play those. As far as buying puts, it depends on how quickly we are selling off. Like the last candle we had here today on SPY was a lot. It was the end of the day. Again, it was fueled by that Apple news, but ultimately, right, people are starting to see it roll over, and then finally we got the flush. Got information, so everyone is coming down pretty hard. So I just want to see support. I might play puts next week, but ultimately I think it's more looking for positions that are beaten down and start looking for basing action is what I'm looking for on a lot of these, especially a lot of these good stocks like your Facebook, Squares. Square I tried to actually play today. Thought I would hold here. It popped back quite a bit, but then sold off. And now it's even lower. I'm actually looking at like 235-ish for entry. I'm hoping we can possibly get that in another week or so. We'll see how far and how quickly we do sell off. Again, there's no true catalyst, so it might be a slow bleed out like it has been until today. So I want to see how that plays out. But ultimately, Amazon, like I said, your e-commerce, still playing range as long as it can hold this 34.40 I'm looking at. Tight stop on this if it does break below that, but we should get a nice bounce there. It might just see this again hold range until this whole XPX rollover, and then get that 2 week. Again, I have to look for specific dates as far as when they are going to determine about what's going Powell's future. I think it's up to Powell primarily, so we'll have to see what way he goes. If, again, he decides not to stay, that could be worrisome. Again, it could cause uncertainty in a market that is already uncertain with all the variants and lockdowns and mandatory vaccines and everything. So being said, there's still a lot of, although the market really doesn't care about any of this stuff, the market's still very strong. It is just keeping an eye on that one piece, and he is critical to what could play out, the way people are going to essentially position their money. So being said, that's pretty much what I got. I didn't want to make this video too long. I know it's kind of more of a state of market. There isn't much of a watch list. Watch your FANG. Watch your stocks that you really like. Focus on just those stocks. Don't chase stocks. That's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest lessons I've always learned was to go with the stocks. That's why I have a core list, because these are the ones that I enjoy. If for whatever reason a stock burns me a couple different times, I will take it, I will remove it off this list, and I just won't play it anymore. Or typically there's some I have on this list that I just won't play options on, but I'll definitely play shares on. It's just finding what works for you and continuing to repeat that process. So if you've made it this far, remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.